If you do not know me, my name is Jake Antezana. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you this morning. And if you're like, well, Jake, what do you do? I'm the youth pastor here, okay? So I hang out with students. I hang out with people that are in 6th through 12th grade. Just saw one of my really, really good friends on the front row, so that's awesome. What's up, Brick? This beautiful girl that was up here, that was my wife, Carly, and we have a 3-year-old, or almost 3-year-old. She acts like she's 33, so it's absolutely incredible. One thing just to know about me before we start is that I've grown up here. I met my wife when I started working here when me and my wife were dating. We got engaged. We got a dog. Come on, y'all. We survived COVID. And now we are surviving, attempting to survive parenthood and the life of a teenager. Well, enough about me. I want to take a second to honor our lead pastor, Pastor Mark. How many of you have just enjoyed having our lead pastor back in building? It has been such a blessing. Can I tell you, even having him back in the office, it has been so sweet to have him back because even hear him singing his old tunes walking down the hallway, him yelling at somebody, saying how proud he is of them. It has just been such a joy to have Pastor Mark back. Yes, in the pulpit, but man, we have missed him in the building as well. Pastor Mark, we love you. One more time, can we just give it up for our lead pastor, Pastor Mark? Well, we're in week 3 of a series called Counter Culture. Have you all been enjoying the series so far? Man, I love the idea behind it. I love the messaging behind it because what Jesus really did, what he came to do, was to go the opposite way. Was to show that there was a different way to do things. Because how many of us know when everybody's going the same way, nobody's sticking out? I love Jesus' life. I love the story of Jesus' interactions with people. And today we're going to be talking about one. But before we do, let me introduce the title of the message today, which is this: Turning the Tables. Turning the tables. And as we get into this, I want to ask a question. Is there anybody in here that you guys enjoy partaking, watching, listening to, playing sports? Anybody like sports in here? Okay. This will probably be the most that you participate all Sunday. That's okay. We'll take it. Anybody in here? You guys big football fans? Football fans in here? Okay. On the count of 3, yell at your team to me. Okay. 1, 2, 3. I heard, that's what I heard. Okay. I'm a Commanders fan. Shout out Jaden Daniels. Come on, somebody. I was talking to some Ravens fans before. Y'all got a great quarterback too. I know things are looking rough, but I promise you, Lamar gets back, you'll be all right. I mean that sincerely. Lamar, really good. But being a Commanders fan, I just wanted to say something really, really quick. We got to pray for our Cowboys fans, y'all. We got to pray for them. We have a Next Steps table out these back doors for our Cowboys fans. If you want to know more about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. No, I'm just joking. We do love our Cowboys fans. But it is baseball postseason time. Anybody baseball fans in here? They shouted. I'm going to need you to shout later too, okay? I'm going to shout me down later. Well, it's baseball postseason time, and there's been some incredible games. There's been some crazy stuff that's happened this year, but I want to take you back to 2019 when, being a DC sports fans, we had about 2 years where we had some incredible times as DC sports fans where, as my entire life, it's been misery. People ask me, Jake, how do you deal with hard things? I'm like, well, I grew up a DC sports fan. It's pretty easy to deal with hard things when you grew up a DC sports fan. I've experienced heartbreak my whole life, and I've been able to bounce back. Come on, somebody. So 2018, my all-time favorite team, the Washington Capitals with Alex Ovechkin, they won the Stanley Cup. And then in 2019, we get to this place where the Nationals win the World Series. So back-to-back years, we win championships. I'm like, life is good, y'all. I'm feeling all right. And then the next year, COVID hit. So I was just like, whoa, you know. But I want to tell you a story about the 2019 Washington Nationals. You see, in 2019, the Washington Nationals were about 50 games into their season. And 50 games in, they had a record of 19 wins and 31 losses. If you don't understand that, that's not good. You don't want to be there. And having this record, there was nobody in the history of baseball that had this record or had this poor of a performance and made the playoffs, let alone did anything. And as you know, I already spoiled the end of the story. The Nationals heat up through the year. They get to September and October, and they're playing in these very meaningful games. They play in this wild card game And there's this young kid named Juan Soto. If you follow baseball, you know about Juan Soto. He played for the Nationals. He got traded to the Padres. Then he played for the Yankees, and now he's playing for the Mets for way too much money. But I love Juan Soto because for me and my fandom, he was able to deliver something that I had never seen before on a baseball field for my own team. 2019, it's a wild card round, and if you don't know what a wild card is, it's pretty much a one-game playoff. The winner advances, the loser goes home, your season's done. It comes to the end of the game, and we're losing, I think, by two or so runs, and Juan Soto steps up to the plate, and he's young at this point, and he is just confident as all get out. He's got great plate discipline, which means he knows when to swing. He knows what the pitcher is going to throw. He's got all the instincts, and it gets to a point in the wild card game where he hits a shot out into the field. And we have the bases loaded and 3 people score. And Juan Soto is so pumped up that as he's rounding second base, he just starts like jumping up and hooting and hollering. He doesn't stay on the base, y'all. He gets tagged and he gets out. But this moment was momentous for the World Series run in 2019. People would call this moment for Juan Soto and the Washington Nationals in 2019 the moment that turned the tables. The moment that turned the tables in favor of the Washington Nationals, because this moment did not only just impact Juan Soto, it almost bled down to the rest of the team. It transferred to the rest of the team because we beat the Brewers, and then we beat the Cardinals, and then we beat the Dodgers, and then we get to the World Series facing the World Series favorite, the Houston Astros. And it comes to find out that the Houston Astros were actually accused of cheating, for stealing signs, all this stuff. And so we are heavy, heavy underdogs. And it gets to a point in the series where people are making heroic plays. People are making diving plays. People are hitting home runs on pitchers that don't give up home runs. And it gets to the point, y'all, where we go to Game 7 in Houston, Texas. And the Washington Nationals win the World Series. Here's the thing about winning the World Series, though, is that most people, most sports, most baseball, I don't know what you would call them, professionals, people that study the game, they're like, that moment in Milwaukee when they were playing the Brewers, when Juan Soto hit that ball and he was being so crazy, he got tagged out, but they scored the runs in order to win the game. That moment was the moment that turned the tables. And so this may seem an odd way to start a message, but I want to draw some similarities from a modern example of one person's example influencing an entire team to one person's example in the Bible influencing an entire religion. To one person's example influencing an entire people. To one person's example influencing an entire family and the lineage that came out of this family. You see, when we're talking about turning the tables, we have to understand that one man turned the tables. So we pick up in this book of John, chapter 8. If you have your Bibles, I'm in John chapter 8, and I'm in verses 1 through 11. And if you're following us on the screen, we'll have it up there. But I'm reading in the New Living Translation, so if you got a different version, it's going to look a little bit different. But the title above chapter 8 is this: A Woman Caught in Adultery. And it reads like this: Jesus returned to the Mount of Olives, but early the next morning, he was back again at the temple. A crowd soon gathered, and he sat down and taught them. I want you to pick up on some clues when we read the Bible here, okay? Jesus is in a very public place, doing a very public thing. Everybody can see him, and everybody can hear him. This is important for the story, because in verse 3, it says this: As he was speaking, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. This was a public spectacle. They were trying to expose Jesus. Verse 4, Teacher, they said to Jesus, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say? They were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him, but Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, all right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone. And then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust. In other words, he said, I'm going to let you chew on that a little bit. When the accusers heard this, They slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. I didn't say this in the first verse, but I want you to hear this. Who did it start with? The oldest. Who you are, where you are at in life, you set the example for the people who are following behind you. So important. The oldest left, and then everyone else did. Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, asked her a question. Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you? No, Lord, she said. And Jesus said, neither do I. Here's the catch. Go and sin no more. Go and sin no more. John 8, 1 through 11. So when we are turning the tables, when we're looking at this series of being countercultural, we have to understand that turning the tables is something that Jesus often did in his life. Something that Jesus practiced in his life. He was looking at culture and he's like, here's actually how we should handle these things. So this story in John chapter 8 is quite remarkable because there are some facts here that look like there is no way out of this situation. The woman is guilty. She's been caught. There is black and white of what Moses' law said. And people are coming to Jesus saying, what do you say? And I'm so thankful that we serve a God, our God, Jesus. He gives us a pathway, and he gives us an example on how to turn tables in our lives. And now listen, for Juan Soto in the Nationals, as he's hitting this bomb, when Juan Soto is turning the tables in an athletic event, the advantage goes one way. The advantage goes to one party. But when Jesus turns tables, he does not do so to gain an advantage. Jesus doesn't do so to hurt other people, but he shows us how we can truly love people in our lives. Those who are the accused, the ones who are even guilty, y'all. He shows us how to love them. He also shows us how to love the ones who are accusing. And this is maybe one of the most important parts. He shows us how to love the ones who are just standing in the crowd, waiting to see what the outcome will be. I believe that we can look at a few things from this story that can help us turn tables in our own lives, Emmanuel Church, and the lives of people around us. Let's look at some of them for the next few minutes. The first one is this, is that if we want to turn tables in our lives, we have to understand that there are people and things and there are spiritual things happening that we don't even see that are trying to make us take the bait. Trying to make us take the bait. Now, I was considering what should I use as an illustration here. I was like, should I use fishing? You put bait on the line, you tie the worm. Y'all can tell how much I fish. I don't know what I'm doing. But in fishing, right, when you put the bait on the hook and you cast it out in the water, you're doing it to catch a fish, either to catch and release or to make into a filet-o-fish. Come on, somebody. But here's the thing that I wanted to really talk about today. Behind the fishing kind of bait, there is generally pain. And for the fish that get caught with that bait, sometimes it ends in death. But I want to talk to us for the next few seconds about the bait that doesn't end in death. I want to talk to us for the next few moments about the bait that ends in separation. The bait that ends in division. I want to teach you something here today. Is that okay? Okay, they said yes. Wow, that's better than 9 o'clock. Sounds good. I'm going to teach you a new vocab word. Some of y'all have students in the APC being taught by my incredible youth team right now. Some of y'all got kids in kids church, and for the ones in nursery, I know y'all barely making it. Like, I understand. I'm there with y'all. Go get another cup of coffee if you need it. But this vocab word is one that you may or may not know, and it is a slang term. But I want you all to leave here with something that you can tell your kids or your grandkids that you learned. And when you tell them this, you will also guarantee that they will probably never use this term again because you know what it means. And you're probably going to use it incorrectly. But that's okay. This term is called rage bait. Rage bait. Can you turn to your neighbor and say rage bait? Rage bait is content, let's just look at the internet as a whole, usually, but not always, found online. And this content tries to provoke anger or outrage as a means of gaining attention or making money. We don't live in a world like that. When I go on Facebook, people are always talking about how they love everyone in their lives. People never complain about the traffic. People never complain about how good the government is doing. People are never even bashing other football teams or baseball. People never do that. We live in complete and perfect harmony. But this word is also used as a verb. And the verb is this: to make something intentionally provocative. To get a response from you that is negative. To bait you to be enraged. Make sense? Here's a verse in John chapter 10, verse 10, and I promise you this is going to get somewhere, but I need to tell you some of the tactics of the enemy so that when you are aiming to turn tables, you know what the enemy is doing. There is no sports team on earth that just goes blindly into a game like, oh, we're just going to pass the ball today. No, there is preparation that happens. When you go to war, there is no ignoring that the enemy is also coming against you. So as Christ's followers, it is important that we grasp this concept that the enemy has plans too. And John chapter 10, verse 10 says that the thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. And Jesus is talking about in this picture where he's referring to himself as the good shepherd. And Jesus says, that's the thief's plan, but my purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. And I wanted to teach you this term rage bait today. Because first of all, you experience it. Sometimes people just type up some AI ads and you click on them like, oh, I can't believe they said that. Can you believe what they're doing out there? I know some of y'all out there, y'all been watching the AI videos, and you guys are like, man, can you believe they put some lawnmowers on some whales to clean the barnacles off of them? Don't even play with me. I know some of y'all sent that to your kid, and you said, can you believe this? We live in a world where rage baiting has become such a common thing because more interactions equals more compensation for them. And let me tell you a different way. The more you take the bait with the enemy, the more successful he becomes. So let's fight taking the bait. I wanted to teach you this term because the enemy likes to steal, kill, and destroy, but it looks different in 2025 than it did in 2015. It looks different in 2025 than it did in 2020. Because the enemy wants to use these things in our culture today, not only to trap us like they were trying to trap Jesus, but he wants to trip us up too. In our world today, the enemy knows that we are the most, listen, look at my fingers, we are the most connected we have ever been. If you ever look at your Facebook profile, it'll say you have 1,000 friends or 1,500 friends, or for some of you, 500 friends. I don't know 1,500 people, I don't think. I don't know how I got all those friends on my thing. We're the most connected we ever have been. So what better way for the enemy to damage the connection than to sow seeds of division within groups of people who are proximately close but have very different views on how life should be. So let me just say this. When we take the bait that the enemy throws out there, we don't get to do what Jesus did. We don't get to respond the way that Jesus did. You see, we don't get to turn the tables. Instead, we pick our seat at the table. We pick a side. And when we pick a side, we don't get to impact the whole table. A couple years ago, we went on a staff retreat. And it's actually funny I'm sharing this, but we went to, I won't say the names because that's not right. I was very close, y'all. Some of it was good, some of it was bad. But we have 20-something people on our staff, y'all. So we're on this really long table, and I'm sitting on one side of the table, and So got some people sitting over there, like people that I probably would talk to. And we have so many people at this restaurant that one side of the table gets their order taken by one waiter or waitress, and the other side gets taken by a different one. And it gets to the point where we're sitting in this restaurant, and my food comes out in like 15 minutes. Got like a nice little like steak, little baked potato action. Y'all getting hungry yet? Okay. We're gonna have to do like a manual food truck next time. And I start eating my food, and I look across, and I'm like, where's your food at? He's like, bro, I don't know. We put it in the same time as you. And it takes an hour for them to get their food. And when it comes out, it's like undercooked. Stuff kind of stinky. And here's the thing, is that the only way that I knew that what was happening on my side of the table was not transferring to the other side of the table is because I could look at him. I could see what was not happening. I could see, but the thing is this, is that even though the problem across from me was maybe an extremely undercooked steak that came out and said, the only reason I knew something was wrong on the other side of the table was because I saw what was happening. But listen, there's 20 of us, so there's 10 people all the way down here, and I'm not able to know what's happening down here because their experience is it's the same, but it's different. And you see, what the enemy wants to do is he wants to look at us as we're sitting across the table. And as I get my food and as I'm eating it, I'm enjoying it, he wants to look across and be like, man, stinks for you. You should have sat on this side of the table. You would have had your steak cooked right. And so there's a disconnect. And as people are sitting down here and they're struggling, I'm not even able to pick up that they're struggling down there. So how do we get to a point where we are not planting ourselves on one side of the table? Because on one side of the table, there was life. There was full stomachs. On the other side, there was disappointment. And I think people even got sick, y'all. How do we navigate from not planting ourselves on one side of the table or the other? I believe it takes a good answer. So the second thing I want to talk to you about this morning is the best answer. See, Proverbs 15:1 reads like this. A gentle answer, this is the New Living Translation, a gentle answer deflects anger, but harsh words make tempers flare. And here's the thing. Jesus was confronted with a question by people who were looking to trap him. These people were not looking for wisdom. They were not looking for help. They were looking to put Jesus in a bind. They were looking to hurt Jesus. The answer is quite clear. This woman sinned. This woman was in the wrong. But I want to point out something in the story. Jesus' first response is not a reaction, because the reaction is what they wanted. They wanted Jesus to say something off the top of his head. They wanted Jesus to say something immediately. They wanted to make Jesus say something they could clip and they could make sound bad and they could put a quote over it and say, this is what Jesus said about the situation. But Jesus would not react. And as Jesus did not react, I can imagine the crowd chiming in. I can imagine the comments section popping off a little bit. The peanut gallery, as you would say. And I can imagine there was so much pressure on Jesus in this moment. And I want to speak to you about something that I learned when I was studying this. When the pressure mounts in your life for a reaction, watch what Jesus does in this moment. He changes his posture. He takes a knee and he starts writing in the sand. And I don't know about you, but I think about other times where I might take a knee in my life. Maybe it's in my prayer life. Maybe we see it in the Gospels. So many times Jesus draws away and spends time with his Father. So as Jesus is kneeling down, maybe he's taking a second to pray. Maybe he's taking a second to seek what his Father would say. And as the pressure mounted on Jesus in this moment, Jesus changed his posture. Jesus' initial response was never going to be a reaction. His first response was always going to be praying. Because the thing that Jesus lived out in his private life, the thing that he built a habit for when nobody was watching, when nobody knew what he was doing, when Jesus wasn't teaching anybody, when Jesus wasn't on a platform, when Jesus wasn't on Facebook Live, when Jesus wasn't in front of people where he had to look a certain way. No, when Jesus was in private, he practiced things. So that when the moment came in public and the pressure was mounting, all he had to do was change his posture because that was what he had always done. My challenge to you today is this, church. When the pressure mounts, do you react? When you feel the pressure, when you feel it being put on you, does your posture get all defensive? Does your posture get like you're ready to fight back? You're like, I gotta fight or flight. What's your posture when the pressure mounts? Because for Jesus, it was to bend his knee and to take a moment as he's drawing in the dirt. I can imagine Jesus was taking a moment because the noise was so loud. The comments were popping off. People saying out-of-pocket things. But Jesus knew something, and it's something that I learned while I was studying this. Taking a second to answer someone and giving them a response is never going to be a bad thing. I was talking to my wife about this. I was debating sharing this, so bear with me. I was like, man, we got to learn the theology of being quiet sometimes. I used it a little bit harsher term. We got to learn the theology of shutting our mouths and looking at what Jesus said. Because taking a second to answer someone and giving them a thoughtful response, giving them a life-giving response was never going to be a bad thing. Because in fact, this shows that Jesus cared deeply about the situation. It shows that Jesus wanted the best outcome, not only for the woman, but for the people who were accusing the woman, for the people who weren't even a part of anything, who were just in the temple. Jesus wanted for everybody to take something from this moment. And so before he could deliver his response, he had to take a moment to kneel down, draw in the dirt. You see, the best answer in this scenario was to give all of the voices their moment to shine, to get their one-liners in. I can imagine people even making fun of Jesus, mocking him. But listen, church. I need some of y'all to catch this. If you're taking notes, pull out the connection card in the back. I need some of y'all to write this down, put it on your mirror, put it in your car right where the speedometer is, so when somebody cuts you off, you remember this. Jesus never let someone else's opinion of him make him step out of who he was. Come on, I need somebody to hear that this morning. Jesus never let what somebody else said or thought about him make him step out of his identity. And most importantly, the opinions and the ideas of the crowd around him, all of the voices, he knew what he was sent for. So he said, there's no way they're going to make me step out of what I was sent here for either. Can I just speak to some people in here? Can I give you some encouragement? We got some incredible students over there in the APC. I love them with my entire heart. Some of them come from families where they are the first Christ follower. I have students in that building whose parents drop them off on the back dirt road. They walk down the ditch and they come in the APC. And I tell them when they go home, number one, you got to honor your mom and dad. But number two, you might be the only Bible that they ever read. You might be the only encounter with Jesus that they ever experience. So don't you dare sacrifice that because you were upset about something that they told you to do. This goes the same for your lives. The people in your lives are the people that God has sent to be impacted by your story. Jesus never let someone else's opinion make him step out of what he was sent to do. You were sent to change worlds, Emmanuel Church. You were sent to love on people that nobody wants to love. You were meant to love people that nobody is able to love. Proverbs 15:1, we read it at the beginning of point 2, but I want to read it to you in KJV. And it reads like this: A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. And I want to read it this way, because in the KJV is the one that's the first English translation. And so this phrase at the beginning of 15 verse 1, turneth away, it comes from the Hebrew word, and it's spelled S-U-B. Come on, somebody. Anybody hungry in here? Y'all can use a little sub. But it's pronounced like this, shub. I love that. It's such a cool word. Why don't we have a shub in the English language? But this word shub means to bring back, to restore, to refresh, to repair. And so what Jesus, can I tell y'all something? Jesus knew the entire Old Testament. He knew it. And I can think that Jesus is thinking of Proverbs 15:1 and thinking about the gentle answer can restore. The gentle answer that I'm going to give can repair. The gentle answer I'm going to give can refresh. Because when it says, turneth away, turning the tables doesn't become one-sided anymore. Turning the tables then becomes, how can I impact this entire room? How can I impact my entire family? How can I impact my entire workplace? Because shub, y'all learn something today. Go talk to your neighbors. Be like, y'all, I know some Hebrew. My pastor told me today, shub. You know shub? I know shub. And so Jesus knew something about the situation. If he scolded these men, if he took the woman's side who was caught in sin, whatever side that Jesus took, he knew that it would not end up the way that could lead to healing. He knew that whatever side he took, it could not lead to wholeness. There could be no shub. There would be death, or there would be the breaking of the law. So Jesus saw the two options that they provided. And some of y'all need to know this in here today. Sometimes we just see one or two ways, or one or two or three ways. Can I tell you all what? When we give it to God, he gives us revelation on which way we should actually go, on what way we should actually pursue. Because when Jesus saw the two options they provided, he said, that's okay, I'll make my own way. And he made a third. And Jesus, instead of answering any questions being asked, he stood up from where he was and he made a statement. All right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone. And at this, the people left. You see, Jesus saw that there were two seats. And he looked at the options. He was like, man, they want me to sit here and say, you sinned, you messed up, you broke the law, and you got caught breaking the law. And in our day and age, in our culture, you should die. And I can imagine Jesus thinking about the other seat. This is the other option. I am a daughter of God. I made a decision. My decision isn't who I am, it's something I did. And they're trying to tell me that because of my action, that is now my identity. So Jesus sees the two, and he picks the third. Some could say that Jesus turned the tables on the situation. Because the best answer was never going to be a reaction. It wasn't giving into his emotional response. Some of us have to grow in our emotional maturity to realize that we are responding to things the way that we always have because we've never dealt with a wound from our childhood. We've never dealt from a wound from somebody leaving us. We've never dealt from a wound from somebody betraying us. It was never giving into his emotion. It was Jesus bending his knee and seeking his Father in what would be best, to take a second and respond. And in a world where people all around us love to react, May we be a church who responds. Here's the thing. As Christ followers, we are called to follow what Jesus did. We are called to mirror his life that he lived. We are called to be Christ-like. Jesus turned the tables and it impacted, not like Juan Soto, it didn't just impact a baseball team and turn the favor just in one side. No, when Jesus turned the tables, it impacted families. I can imagine this woman. When I read the Bible, I'm always curious about what happened to the people that Jesus encountered when they left him. I know in my own life, when Jesus encountered me, I love to tell people my story. And for this woman, maybe she went home and we're like, you'll never believe I met a man. And I was caught. I was dead to right. They would have been right to kill me. But a man asked a question, and how could that have impacted a family? And then I think about the legacy of a response, how it could have impacted a city. How it does impact cities. And we look at our world and our history of the world, and the reality of it is that this guy named Jesus has impacted countries. And most importantly, Jesus Christ has impacted the world because he has turned the tables, because Jesus is countercultural. And here's the truth. My third and final thing is that the tables have already been turned. So the tables are already turned. You're sitting here like, Jake, your whole title of your message is turning the tables. If Jesus already did it, then what do we do? Going to Bob Evans after this? I don't know. Our responsibility as people who say, when I say I'm a Christian, it means that I'm Christ-like. It means I do as he did. It means I forgive as he forgave. It means that I should seek my dad, my Father in heaven, like he sought his Father in heaven, before I ever give a reaction. Our responsibility is to look at the ones that sit at either seat at the table and say to them, instead of taking a seat, you know what Jesus did? He waited. Yeah, he waited. I need you all to track me, okay? He waited. And he bent down in the knee. He waited. And he said, how may I serve you? The accusers. Jesus could have lashed out. He said, how dare you? How dare you expose this? How dare you how dare you call me out? But he said, how may I serve you? You know what? I'm going to love you. I got to. Sounds good, whatever you guys want to do, but I have a statement to make. Whoever is without sin, go ahead and throw the first stone. Not rebuking them, not saying they're wrong in what they're saying, but simply making a statement. Because he waited, and because he was serving them. Then he goes over to this seat, and he says, woman, where are your accusers? And she said, they're all gone. And Jesus said, well, look, I'm left, but I'm not going to condemn you, but I'm going to call you up to a higher standard. So go and sin no more. So here's what Romans 8, 1-2 says, and I promise I'm almost done. So now there is no condemnation for those who belong to Christ Jesus. And because you belong to him, the power of the life-giving Spirit has freed you from the power of sin that leads to death. You see, Jesus sets a beautiful example here in John chapter 8 of what he himself will carry out through the cross at the end of his life. And I don't know about you, but I see myself in this woman. In my own brokenness. Now, my sin might not be adultery, but my sin was addiction. My sin was gossip. My sin was cursing. My sin were things that separated me from the perfection of who God is. And maybe you're sitting in here this morning and you can see yourself as this woman, pointed at, talked about, accused, separated. But Jesus stands in the gap. He stood in the gap for this woman. He stood in the gap for me. He defends me. And he turns the tables in my life. And he shows me it was never about taking a seat at the table. It was never about having an opinion and sticking to it and pointing fingers and saying how wrong this other group of people are and saying how dumb you must be for thinking this and all this stuff. Jesus never called us to that. I'm not standing up here saying there's not biblical things that we should hold our lives to and things that we should follow as examples. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the enemy wants to pit us against each other. And we've given into it. But when Jesus comes in and turns the tables, he shows us it was about serving others along the way. Jesus' perspective in this moment, it was one of love. It was not one of being judgmental. He had every right to be. He was the last one in the circle. He was the one who didn't sin that could have cast the stone. It wasn't about looking the part on the outside while being absolutely broken to pieces on the inside. It wasn't about that. But here's what I want to leave you with today, Emmanuel. Jesus never sat at the table. He never picked a side of who was right or who was wrong. But you know what he did? He turned the tables in that culture. He turned the tables in that community. And he said, how may I serve you? How may I wait on you? How can I serve you? Jesus flipped the world on its head. Jesus turned the tables to show us it was all about us. It was about the woman who was caught in adultery. But can I tell you something? It was also about the people who came and accused. Because Jesus sat here and said, daughter, I see you. I see where you're broken. I see where you've messed up. I see where there is separation. And I'm here to serve you. But he also looked at the people who accused and said, look, I'm here. I'm here to answer questions. I'm here to give you my thoughts. I'm here to challenge you in the way that you're thinking. I'm here to serve. Because Jesus never looked at anybody and dismissed them. Jesus said, I've come for the sick and not for the healthy. It was all about us. It was about reconnection with us. It was about loving us. It was about serving us. Jesus turned the tables, and so should we. It's our responsibility. You call yourself a Christian? It's time to start turning some tables in your life. With the people that you unfriended on Facebook. With the people that you've unfriended in your life. You walk into church, you can't even sit in the same section of pews as them. You used to sit right here, now you sit all the way over there, and you can't even. And can I tell you what? The enemy wants that, y'all. Jesus turned the tables. So at this table of life, stop sitting down. Stop pointing fingers. Stop picking a side and saying how wrong they are. Because when you sit and you pick your stance, you're sitting in idle faith. I-D-L-E, faith. That means you're immobile. But let me also challenge you with this. When you pick your seat at the table, you are also sitting in I-D-O-L, faith. Idle faith. You are thinking your way is right. You are thinking your way is the only way. And when you think that, I got to tell y'all something. You're in deep trouble. Because Jesus saw the two ways. And he said, I'll make another one. So let me leave you with this, Emmanuel. Turn tables. Be active. Love people when it inconveniences you. Live like Jesus. Respond like Jesus. And serve people like Jesus. Some of y'all have been praying for people to change. God, would you soften their heart? Keep praying that. but could you also ask God to soften yours? God, would you change? Would you show them the truth? Would you give them revelation? As you pray that, pray for God to show you too. Seeking Him is a way that leads to turning tables. Can you pray with me? God, we love you. God, I thank you for your word in John 8. God, I thank you for Jesus who didn't say that this sin was acceptable. He never said that. He just didn't condemn the woman. He said, go and sin no more, because he knew there was more life to live. He knew there was more relationships she had to build. He knew that the stories that she could tell could impact at least a family, maybe a city. But God, they're impacting us here, Salisbury, Maryland, 21804, 2,000 plus years later. Thank you for turning tables, Jesus. So God, we love you. Would you go with us this week, God? Would you let this word stick in our mind? That as we want to be quick to react, as we want to be quick to yell at somebody, if we want to be quick to lose our witness on somebody, would you bring this word back to our remembrance, God? So we love you. We thank you, God. Would you go with your people? I pray all this in Jesus' name.
Thank you so much for watching our video. If you guys are interested in any more content, make sure to check out these videos right here. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also have our website, which is emmanuelchurch.live, or you can find it in the link in the description below. I just want to thank you guys for being a part of our eChurch family.